is a modern classic. J.R.R. Tolkien reincarnated, by the way. Well. Welcome the fuck. Sorry.
What was that?
Welcome back. This is... Yeah, I know, it's been a while, and I know that you've been waiting, but it's here finally. We're gonna do this shit, and it's gonna be crazy. Like, buckle your seatbelt, gird your loins, and let's get the
I thought this was a classy party.
going. So a few months ago now, I did a video. We did round one of the, I think I called it something, but I don't remember what I called it. And I could watch the video to figure out what it's called, but I don't want to do that. I think it was called like Popular Fantasy Book Series Challenge Tournament, something like that. Basically how this works, if you haven't seen round one, I'll link it below. You have to watch round one before you watch this round. This is round two. We're doing a tournament to figure out like what is the best current popular fantasy series. So we have 3 series that we're reading. Well, I'm reading them. You're not reading them. You might be reading them. You might have already read them, or you might read them in the future. I don't know. I don't know what these series are called, but one is like the Alex Stern by Lee Bardugi, who wrote Shadow and Bone and 6 Crows. The first one was Ninth House. And then we also have The Court of Rose and Thorns, the Sarah J Maas like fairy smut book. Everyone's reading it. You've definitely seen these books around. And then we've got the Atlas something. What is it? I don't know what this series is called, but the first one was called the Atlas 6. And in round 1, I read the first book in all those series. Naturally, in round 2, this is round 2, I'm gonna be reading the second book in those 3 series. Is that making sense? The book that I think I'm gonna start with is Hellbent, which is the second one in the Ninth House. Alex Stern. What is the series called? If you watched round 1, then you know what my thoughts were on the first one. I wasn't too impressed. I thought that none of the characters except for the main character had any real depth, and I didn't give a fuck about any of them. I thought that the magic was stupid. Like, it reminded me of like ghouls, ghosts, and goblins, and like smoke and mirrors, like magician stuff. So yeah, for this, I just hope more characters are developed, not only just Alex, and that the magic is just more interesting and, I guess, grown up, because this is like an adult series, I believe. It better be. If I remember correctly, in the first one, there was like tons of like very adult themes. That's all I'll say. And then the next one is The Atlas Paradox by Olivia Blake. In round 1, the Atlas 6 came in first place, so we're going into this with pretty high expectations. And then the next one is, God, I don't remember. I don't have it with me right now. I think it's A Court of Mist and Fury. That is like, obviously, that's the Harry Potter of our generation. No. It's extremely popular. And in round 1, A Court of Thorns and Roses did come in last place. It did come in last place. I thought it was pretty terrible. I did not enjoy my time reading that book for the most part. There was some redeeming scenes. Like, I think that the end of that first book wasn't horrible. In the video of round 1, I was sick and I ended up not vlogging or recording the in-between bits. So this time I'm gonna try to record it, because like, if you only get the beginning and the end of the fight, of the brawl, then you're not getting the whole story. This intro is so cute.
Hi, my name is Becca and welcome to my spoiler recap of Ninth House by Lee Bardugo, just in time for the release of Hellbent.
Hey you guys! So, I've got like 80 pages left in Hellbent. Yeah. I'm just like over it. Just ready for it to be done. I'm gonna spend the next like hour or so, however long it takes for me to finish this right now, to just finish it, get through it. It's been work to get through this book. There's just something about it, and there's something about this whole series that in my brain is just not clicking. It feels like it should work. I think it contains everything to be good, but for some reason it just isn't. There's moments, very few, that are like really great, but the majority is just fine. It's nothing to write home to mom about. if it wasn't for this video, if it wasn't for this tournament that like billions of people are turning into, like this is like Fox News the other day said that this is like the Super Bowl of the book tournament world, and we all know to trust the word of Fox News. If it wasn't for this video, I would not. I just wouldn't. There's just elements about it that I'm like, why? What? And there's some stuff that works really well. Like I said in the first one, it was the murder. There was a murder mystery that I thought was like pretty fun, pretty interesting. All the magic and like everything else was just like, ugh. And it's the same here. But guess what? In this one, there's a couple more murders. And I just figured out what happened, who did the murdering. But I have high hopes for the ending because I remember in the first one, the ending was very fun. And I feel like this is going to achieve what the first one did, which is like a really great build up to a very exciting end, which is fun. The only problem is that like the stuff that has happened, the stuff that has built up to this climax is just not exciting to me. But yeah. Oh my god. Like, what was the point of that? Okay, hey. So wait, I feel like there's like a name, I don't know. I don't know anything about like wrestling or boxing or the UFC. Like round 1 of round 2. Wait, yeah, round 1 of... Somebody help me! Somebody help me! Like part 1 of fight 1. I finished Hellbent and I want to give just my quick thoughts on it. No. Not a fan. Ultimately, I was not a fan. I finished it maybe like 10 minutes ago and I've just been sitting here thinking why it's so bad. And I think what I've decided is that there is just way too much plot. The shit that these characters are experiencing, they are literally traveling to hell and back. It's too much. There's way too many twists and turns. There's way too much stimulation. My brain can't handle it. Just so much bullshit going on that my brain just ends up forgetting stuff and it becomes quite confusing. Twists and turns are being thrown in that ultimately have nothing to do with anything. Like you'll go down this dark alley into something that's actually it seems quite interesting and you're like, oh, what's going on over here? And I understand trying to like mislead the reader, but in this there's way too much of that. Way too many red herrings because you go down this alley, you get a little bit intrigued. After a while, you start being able to tell like, oh, this has nothing to do with anything. And it's exhausting. I believe, if I remember correctly, this is a story for adults. It feels incredibly immature. Like that, this was a big problem with the first one as well. It just feels like a story for kids. But then every once in a while, there will be like some really jarring and out of place scene that it just like throws it all off. Probably the most confusing thing about this book specifically was one of the characters, they are like possessed by a demon and he's got a he's like in the mortal world, but like he's also in hell, but he's also not. He's possessed by a demon, so he's got like glowing eyes, he's got horns, he's got markings all over his body, but then he's also got an incessantly erect glowing dong. I think it's mentioned in this book about 3 times, but throughout the entire book, reading it, in the back of my mind, I'm just thinking, what the fuck? Did that, like, is that gonna come into play? Like, is that gonna ever be explained? No. I think this book just needs to be edited down a ton. And I just crave some moments of peace. It's just not realistic. Like, Alex and all of her friends are students at Yale, and I'm supposed to believe that she's having this insane fucking journey traveling through hell while also being a student at Yale. And there's like zero dialogue. It's all just description about these fights and these weird historical witchy cult people and rituals that happened in Yale in like 1802. I just so badly want these characters to just like sit down and speak to each other and it not last 3 paragraphs. The shit they're going through is fucking crazy. And they just are like, well, on to the next thing. We gotta go on to the next thing. We gotta go to this site where we can talk to this guy who's the son of this professor, and this professor was betrayed by these other professors, and also this thing from the Bible about these judges, but also these judges also in Yale, also these people from Yale also went to hell back in 1836, and they're the pilgrims, but we need to go speak to the son of this professor who's betrayed about why he killed all these people. Oh, but he was possessed by this demon over here. And then at the same time, across the country in Los Angeles, there's this drug dealer. I killed his cousin, and he is coming to kill me, and he is blackmailing me from my mother, who is a spiritual nut job who I don't like, but also my friend slash boyfriend maybe, he's actually in hell. Ugh. Please don't mind my messy bedroom. I'm literally just a person who's trying his best. So, it's been quite a few days, possibly weeks. No, yeah, it's probably been a couple weeks. I am about to finish the Atlas Paradox. I started this like 3 days ago, and I have been just ferociously reading it. Not because it's been like so incredible and it's like I haven't been able to put it down. I've just been like patiently, well, I would say impatiently waiting for something to happen. It is the most boring book I've ever fucking read. I've got about 40 pages left in this 400-page book, and finally, for the first time, there is something that is exciting happening. And everything prior to this has just been just a lot of words, but really just saying absolutely nothing. And it is like, honestly, an achievement to have written this much of nothing. The Atlas 6, the first one, it won the whole first round. Like, I thought it was great. And one, I will say, like, I do think that just quality is worse. Like like everything is just kind of worse, but I do think that it is quite similar to the first one. Like, it is just as, you know, dark academia-y. Not a ton of plot. Like the first one, the plot was lacking. What I liked about the first one was the characters and the character dynamics and the atmosphere. But I think what this is missing is just a direction, because with the first one, what is teased from the very beginning is that by the end of the year, by the end of their first year at this society, one of them will die. One of them will die. And that is, you know, a constant throughout the book. And it's this thing that you're like working towards. There is going to be an end here. We're working towards something. But this, there is none of that. Like, we'll see. Right now, I'm not kidding, it's honestly sitting at 1 star. But we'll see if these last 40 pages, because as I said, there's something that's pretty exciting that's gonna happen, because I could see it going one way where it's just like the thing that the character said that they're going to do, they're just gonna do it, and I think that would be bad, and I think it would be really unexciting. But I think if there's like some twist, then I could bump it up to like 2 stars. But yeah, really disappointed with this one. Alright, hi. My hair's wet and I got a pimple on my lip. You are the chosen one! So I finished the Atlas Paradox, whatever the fuck. I'll say the ending, it got like, it wasn't what I was expecting, but it was like, I did end up giving the book 1 star. There was not a single moment that was enjoyable for me. However, I will say that I think that it set up the next book to possibly be quite successful. Like, I could see the next book being quite good, but overall there was nothing I liked about it. All the characters just fucking hate each other, despise each other. They despise each other. And it's not in a way that's like kind of charming, where it's like, oh, like we don't like each other, but we're gonna fight for each other. And we're gonna work together for some greater good. It just was, like I said before, directionless and not fucking fun at all to hear about these characters just shit on each other for no reason. I don't understand why they don't like each other so much. It doesn't make any sense. However,
now come on now.
yeah. Yeah, I think I've read this much in like 3 days, which for me is pretty good. But this is... The whole point of this is I really fell in love with reading as like a 12-year-old. I think it was in like 6th grade. I remember the first Hunger Games had come out. Then it was like Divergent, The Maze Runner. The Maze Runner was like the first big book that I read. And mind you, it was in 2012, and I remember 2012 notoriously was the year that the world was supposed to end, and I believed it. I 100% believed it. And I remember December 21st was the day that the Mayans said the world was going to end. And that entire year I was like, yeah, like this is the end for us guys. Like 6th grade, let's fucking riot, like let's go, like we gotta live it up as much as possible. No, I wasn't like that. I was more like,
oh, well, impending doom is coming, so what's the point of any of this shit?
But that year I read The Maze Runner and like near the end of the year too, and that is a dystopian book. And I remember I could only read like 5 pages at a time because I would just become so overwhelmed, being like, this is going to be my reality soon, like I can't do this. But I also read like Percy Jackson and like all of Rick Riordan's stuff, and the point of this is to kind of explore, experience, find out what like the Percy Jackson, Hunger Games, Divergent counterparts are of today. And so far this book is the only one that is giving what those books gave, at least in my mind. I'm sure if I were to read them today, I would have a much different experience. But this specific book has been giving the drama, the world building, the stakes that I feel like those books gave. I do really feel like this is, for what it is, well done. I think my main qualm with the first one was just the fact that the reader was kept in the dark for way too long, like pretty much the entire book. What was going on was truly not explained until like the last maybe 150 pages. But with this one, it's much simpler. Everything is like laid out in the beginning. It's a war. There's a war coming. Hopefully that's not a spoiler. The first part of this, I think the first like 180 pages, which I read in one day, was so good. I got really into it. But since then, it's kind of dwindled down a bit. It's kind of doing what the first one did, where in the middle it just slows down a ton, and I think is trying to build stakes and these like little moments between her and her lover. The series is always considered to be like smut. Like people always say like it's fairy smut, but they're not crazy. Like whenever there's like a sexual little tiny moment, it's more just like, he grazed my underboob, or like these random weird flirty moments. Like there was a moment where she was like, so I've heard that like the size of your wings dictates how big something else is. And then he was like,
when we get back to the castle, we'll get a tape measure.
And those moments really just kind of catch me off guard. I could not care less about them fucking. Like I don't care, which I feel like I know is not popular. I know that the majority of people that are reading this, when those moments come up, they're probably like, they just go fucking feral for them. For me, I'm like, let's move on with the story. Like, come on. I want to hear about this world more. But I've got like 200 pages left. I'm gonna try to finish it today, and round 2 will be done. Oh! I didn't realize the mirror was right there. That was really quite the fright. Don't mind me, I'm just on my bedroom floor doing a few calisthenics. I just went for a run. I don't even know what that is. I've been listening to the audiobook on my run, and I just finished listening to chapter 45. I was gasping a little bit. I'm not gonna lie, I was going, and it's all starting to make sense. It's all starting to make sense. Yeah. The ending of that chapter was horrible, though. It really soured it. And I'll just say it, it's not really a spoiler. Basically, like, Feyre is an artistic, artsy girl. She has not been painting for, like, this entire book. In the first book, that was, like, her thing, was, like, painting pictures and stuff, and she hasn't had the urge to do so. But recently there was like this breakthrough moment with one of the characters and her, and she's like, do you know what? I want to paint you. I want to paint you. Can I paint you? And he leans into her ear and goes, naked would be best. Stop looking at my pimple. I know you're looking at my pimple. I know it. Stop. But yeah, that was fucked up and not needed. And
Finish him.
ding, ding, ding! Round two's over, bitch. Like, we're gonna crown our winners, we're gonna crown our losers, and y'all can, you know, sound off in the comments, tell me I'm wrong, tell me who you think gave a better fight. But this is just my opinion, and this is my truth, and I'm living it out loud and proudly. I think what I'm going to do is just add the stars that I gave each book to the stars that I gave them in round one. Because this is, I think this is how a tournament works. It accumulates each game or round, and then the winner is crowned in the end. I don't know though. That's what we're doing here though. So first we're gonna do Hellbent. So the first book, Ninth House, I gave 3 stars. Hellbent, I gave 2 stars, which feels right. It feels right. So that gives it a grand total right now of 5 stars. Does that make sense? I think you get it. Next, we're gonna do the Atlas. So the Atlas 6, I gave 4 stars. The Atlas Paradox, I gave 1 star. So that is a total of 5 stars as well. Now, A Court of Thorns and Roses. I gave the first one 2 stars. I gave this one 4.5 stars. That feels right. In my soul, that feels right. Which brings ACOTAR to have 6.5, a score of 6.5. How the plot has thickened. Because in the first round, when I read Court of Thorns and Roses, I fully was like, wow, this is going to be the worst series. Like, this series is going to come out last. And then the book from the series that I loved, that I thought was going to come out in first place at the end of this, was the worst one that I read for this. Think about that. So we're finishing round 2 with Alex Stern and the Atlas being tied with a score of 5, and ACOTAR with a score of 6.5. Round 3, listen, I feel like whenever people do these types of videos, or like they break up something into parts, you always see people making like TikTok videos of them retiling their bathroom floor, and it's like a 4-minute video, and then right as you're like, okay, we're gonna see the final result, it cuts to a blank screen and they're like, okay, follow me for part 2. What I'll say is, don't do that. Don't. Because part 3 will not be for a very, very, very long time. By the time part 3 comes out, you're gonna completely forget that you've watched this. So, subscribe if you want to, but don't subscribe if you're waiting for part 3. Because that shit is not coming for a very long time. The third books in 2 of these series are not even out yet, and they're supposed to come out, I think, at the beginning of 2024. So I think what I'm gonna leave you with is just, bye. This? Are people really like jacking off to my feet?
I didn't realize what that said.